Yeah, very much creative sort of person. I'm more like if for me to learn something, I've got to go through the process of doing it myself. I can't like listen to someone. I have to physically do it, and then I'll learn. I'm sort of like that.
All right. Welcome to the Aussie Ambitions podcast. We've got our guest today, Dylan Brockington, an audio specialist, and we're going to talk to him all about that. Welcome, Dylan. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Scott. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. So it's a bit of a unique situation where you know our environment. You've helped build this studio.
Yep.
We finally got you into the chair to have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, I'm usually on the other side, but no, it's cool to be on this side this time.
Yeah, we had a little bit of musical chairs so everyone could get a feel for what it's like to host, be the guest, be the operator, the engineer. And yeah, that's a bit of a taste on studio life, isn't it?
Yep, that's it.
So really great to get you on because I think this will be useful for people to understand what the podcasting world is all about. We got the situation where it's a video podcast, and you've got skills in the audio world as well as just overall knowledge. So I thought it would be really great to be able to go through basically where you've come from in terms of your interests and how you landed into this kind of a role and what you're working on. So I'll leave it there. Why don't you just give us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm 26. I've been living on the Gold Coast for the last, it's coming up to 9 years now. Since I've been here, I've just been doing odd jobs, hospitality, customer service. And then, 2018, I decided to study audio. So I studied at SAE in Byron Bay, so the School of Audio Engineering as it was originally called. And I did a diploma of audio production to start off with, just to see or get a feel with how I'd actually go with it. And then I found like I was doing pretty all right. And then I did my Bachelor of Audio Production. So all up, it was about 2 years to complete that.
Okay.
And now since I've graduated, I've just been trying to get freelance audio work. I've started up my own freelance business, DTB Audio, so that's my initials, Dylan Thomas Brockington, just thought that was fitting. And basically I'm interested in post-production, so podcasting, mixing for movies or anything like that, short documentaries. That's what I've wanted to sort of get into.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Well, that definitely helps people get a feel for, the area of audio and then some of the applications of that. So like you said, there could be the movie world, there could be perhaps music recording and live gigs as well.
Yeah, I'd usually like what they taught us. It's like a few categories. So you got studio production. So that's what you'd imagine, like you go into a studio as a band or a artist and record. You've got live sound, which is concerts, festivals, and then you've got post-production. So that's, mixing for TV shows, movies, doing the podcasting stuff. It's like the behind-the-scenes sort of work, which I enjoy. So
Nice. So my first instinct was to assume that this was linked to some personal interest. So it does. I feel like it's almost like one of those dream jobs in a sense that you can get close to the action, or you get a good understanding of behind the scenes. So you might have not a celebrity per se, but maybe somebody with a bit of visibility out there, and you might work with them. Do you have an interest in music, or did that come from an interest in music and recording to begin with?
It's funny, like people, when I say I've studied music or audio, they automatically think that I play an instrument or something like that. I'm like, no, I can see why they get confused. Sorry, what's the question?
Oh, it's mainly just, it's perhaps the stereotype, right? So
yeah,
people think, oh, you're an audio engineer, you're working in the audio space. What instrument do you play, and are you in a band and so on? Like, we covered this a bit before, but did you have experience with either some form of music, whether it's DJ?
Years ago, I was interested in like DJing, so I learned how to do that. But ever since I was young, I've been into music. I've just grown up with always having music in the house. Like my parents would just play music in the house or in the car. Like I can't think of a day where I haven't listened to music or wanted to listen to music. It just like changes my mood. So I think it stemmed from that. I originally studied photography when I first graduated high school, and some things happened with that, and I sort of lost a bit of interest. So yeah, I don't know. I just sort of fell into it. Like I was like, oh yeah, I'll just study music. So yeah.
Okay. And are you a creative person or a technical person or somewhere in the middle?
I'd say creative. Yeah, because like I did photography. Like I sort of dabble in a few things. So yeah, very much creative sort of person. I'm more like if for me to learn something, I've got to go through the process of doing it myself. I can't like listen to someone. I have to physically do it, and then I'll learn. I'm sort of like that way. Yeah.
Nice. And obviously you've built this skill here pretty locally. Are you born and raised in Queensland or on the Gold Coast? Where are you from originally?
So, well, I was born or grew up near Brisbane. I always say Brisbane because it's easier, but it was like near Redland Bay. It's sort of like halfway between here and Brisbane. So I was there for like 17 years. So my whole schooling life, and then when I graduated high school, came down to the coast, and I've been here ever since.
Redland Bay, is that like a coastal town, like beach town, or?
Yeah, you could call it that. It's right on the water. So
okay,
yeah.
Did you ever get into anything that might be typical Aussie life, like I don't know, fishing or?
Yeah, no. Well, I've never been into fishing, or I've been sort of a sporty person. I was into playing soccer as a kid, so yeah. But like, I'm not really a very typical Aussie. Like, people have mistaken me for being English. Like, are you English? I'm like, no, I'm Australian.
That's
because it's not like a typical. My accent, I guess, is not a typical very strong Aussie accent. Like, g'day, mate. You know.
Okay.
It's not like that.
Interesting. So people in chats with you, they also pick up that you might be from a different background, or
just it's happened like 2 or 3 times throughout my life. Just meeting a stranger or something, they've just said, "Oh, you're English." I'm like, well, my background is, I suppose most of us are originally from the UK, but yeah, I'm Aussie.
Aussie, that's born and raised. No, that's good. I mean, I think it's interesting to see and for people to hear about where people come from and then where are they headed. And you obviously studied locally as well. Does that mean there's jobs here, like an overwhelming amount of jobs, or would there be maybe more jobs in a more metro place like Sydney, or maybe even, overseas?
Yeah, I'd feel like definitely, let's say like Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, the Gold Coast sort of misses out a bit. It's also a bit of nepotism. Like, you got to know people for sure in the audio industry to get work. And I feel like, especially during COVID or the past year, people have been holding on to their jobs, so they don't want to, oh, Dylan who's just graduated, I'm not going to, give him some of my work. I'm going to hold on to it because it's sort of a tough time. So take what you can get. But yeah, no, there's not a lot of a whole lot of work on the coast, especially. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like to hear that you'd at least put your skills out there, like in the sense of starting your own company and freelancing, just having a look at what's out there and who needs help. Do you get a feel for like how the industry is operating? Like, is it very much, there's the term gig economy, which is what happens in graphic design and a couple of different other fields where people just get paid for that little piece of work, and they can set their rates, but there's nothing secure about it. Do you have a feel of like, are there full-time career jobs in this field that you studied, or is it looking like everyone just has to fend for themselves? And
it's a bit of a grind. Yeah, I can already foresee it. Like, I'll have to definitely hustle. It's a lot of freelance stuff. Just take what you can get, or I mean, in what you want to do. Don't just take anything. Like, if you want to like just do studio production and you want to record artists and bands and mix for them, don't just go for any sort of genre. I'd probably stick to what you're good at. So yeah. And
so how does that affect you? Obviously, you've put in the time and you do have the knowledge to apply it, but there's not something. It's not like someone's welcome you and being like.
No, it's not like it's not right in front of you. You got to really find it. Even with Launchpad and yourself. It was a Gumtree ad, and I found you that way. So you have to really go looking for it. And my other work, I just had to do a Google search and really put myself out there and email them, contact them, and that's how I got more work.
Yeah.
It's not going to come to you, I suppose. You could say that with a lot of things in life. Yeah.
Well, I guess for the listeners at home, whether they're Australian based or overseas, it's just to take a think about what skills do you have and how does that translate into the real world. I mean, obviously, we had a specific need, but it would have been a lot to just say, okay, we're hiring for a full-time position. Sometimes there's that startup mode where you need to actually do a few projects before you can commit. So, just curious, how does that affect your mental state about, going about your week by week? You have to kind of pay the bills. You don't want to lose the skills that you kind of want to keep it fresh. How do you approach it? Like, how are you feeling?
Well, I'll admit I am still at home. So it's okay there, but yeah, sort of, I'm thinking like I want to have enough work to be independent, move out, but I just don't know when that's going to happen, when I'll be secure so I can move out and, I won't be in trouble financially and I'll have security and know that I've got work, but it's hard to sort of predict that. So I suppose I'll just have to just take the leap, and I think it'll push me. Definitely, I'll probably try much harder to get as much audio work as I can, and I think,
What you describe, I've heard that exists perhaps more of a generational thing. So, and it's not anything to any one industry, but it's just that this whole shift is employers are maybe a bit more hesitant, or they're just trying to save cost. It's a combination of things. But do you have other people in your social network that are the same thing? Like they'd like to move out and get their own place, but they're just kind of hanging out for a few things to happen?
Most of my friends moved out a long time ago. Okay. So I suppose just the path I took in life. I was a bit after school, didn't know what I wanted to do, and now I've sort of got a goal now, so I know what I want to do, and I'm a bit more confident in myself and assertive, and so now I feel ready in myself. Like, it's time to leave the nest, get out there, and
sure. Well, I've definitely observed you, and there's lots of different opportunities I can see for people that develop skills, but I think there's just this gap between connecting them. So perhaps it's whether it's nepotism or a bit of networking and just being visible, and there's different ways of doing that. But so you've got yourself as a freelancer in this brand, say it again?
DTB Audio.
DTB Audio. Is that something that you actively promote in some way, like build a social media following?
Yeah, I've got like a website, and on the website I've got links to an Instagram account and a Facebook account. But right now it's sort of, just fleshing out what I'm really want to focus on. Like at the moment it's sort of advertising as a podcast specialist. I'm still working out if that's 100% what I want to do. So I think over time it's going to chop and change a lot. And once I know what I want to do, and then I'll just have my name still, but shift over to that line of work in the audio industry. Yeah.
All right, so this is probably the moment people have been hanging out for, but what is the deal with podcasting? This is 2021. You've been hearing about it probably for more than the masses out there, but is it some kind of gold mine that people are trying to, like a gold rush, people kind of cash in on, or what's the trend towards podcasting?
I think it's a buzzword, podcasting. Everyone wants to jump on it and speak their mind, whatever they want to talk about. It's been popular, I'd say, for the last 5 to 10 years, but since the last year with COVID, everyone has been indoors. They've got money to spend, so they're like, hey, I want to try podcasting. So a lot of people, I feel, there's a lot that won't stick with it because it was just a sort of fad for them, but there's been a lot of good podcasts that have come out of it. Even for myself, started a podcast with a friend from uni. So we've been doing that since end of last year. So that was part of our final project for uni, and then we've just sort of stuck doing that since.
So that's interesting. You basically started it, and is it easier than you thought it would be, or is there any surprises that you had in taking that on? Because you're basically creating content probably on a semi-regular basis now, right?
Yeah, we've struggled with trying to, I suppose, have consistent episodes. We were aiming for an episode a fortnight, but it's always something that comes up, like the guest is tired, for instance, because a lot of our guests are overseas. It's where I'll just explain our podcast. It's called Pacific Sound, and basically the first 3 episodes that we did focused on traditional music in the Solomon Islands. So that's the country that we focused on because my friend's from the Solomon Islands. So we had a good response from that, and then we decided to continue. So the 3 episodes was for our major project, and then after uni, we decided we'll start interviewing the local artists and producers and singers over in the Solomon Islands. So that's called Pacific Sound Profiles. So yeah, we've just been doing that ever since. But yeah, we've just found it's we've just had a few guests sort of pull out, and it's sort of been a bit of a roadblock for us. And it's we've been trying to keep it going and keep the motivation going, because essentially we're not earning a lot of money from it, so
Okay.
we've got to be really motivated to keep it going. Yeah.
So I've got to just ask, was it the origins of it just to apply your skills and just have a bit of a go and a learning, or is it something that you're trying to follow some business model about running a podcast almost like a business?
Well, because of COVID, we had different plans for our major projects, so we were suggested by a lecturer to do a podcast, so it just sort of stemmed from that. And for myself and my friend, we were interested in doing a podcast anyway, so it sort of worked out well.
Okay. Any advice for people out there
in terms of what?
Just if they've heard of podcasting and you hear some of the big names out there saying, oh, you got to start a podcast, just start a podcast, and whatever the domain is, it seems like there's no downside, but of course there will be the downside for lots of things, and people will start something and not see it through. So do you think it's something for everybody? Like, is it something you could just tack on to whatever your interests are, maybe have this on the side, and then whatever the benefits are? Like, I just want to get a feel for your experience. And
I feel like you've got to have a really good topic. I don't know if a lot of people might come at it, maybe not with maybe too much talking about themselves or something, not having a good topic, like too opinion based. It's a tricky one. It's hard to say like what they should do.
Maybe early days too. I guess it's I guess we're on this journey where we're doing video and audio, almost as a proof of concept for the studio, that everything, almost a bit of a mini roadmap. So if somebody wanted to do the same, at least we've got everything clearly mapped out. So this was step 1, and then step 2, and then and from your side, are you doing you're on the mic, or are you doing the production stuff?
So at the moment, just my friend, he has access. He's friends with all the people that we've been interviewing, or knows them. So because it's sort of a language barrier as well, he's been doing the bulk of the interview, and I've been just recording like the intros and outros, and sort of taking a bit more of the post-production side of things on, because he's doing the bulk of the interview. So I'll just do more of that. But yeah, we've hoped to sort of meet up, but he lives in New South Wales, so it's been a bit hard with the border closures. We're hoping to do a few episodes, or try and do every episode together, and hopefully with video. That would be the goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, I'm thinking a lot of people that are experimenting with podcasting and getting started, most of it would be because of remote aspects. It's probably 2 different feeds, somebody on this part of the world, and different quality levels of audio source and all that.
Yeah.
Does that come your way? Like,
it's hard because we can't do like Zoom or anything with these guests, because they're in a country where the internet is only just starting to advance a bit. It's still it wouldn't be good enough for Zoom, like the video quality, or would be very poor. So it's all got to be done via a phone call, and then we route that. So we have the phone call and whoever's interviewing. But it's difficult, because like a lot of the podcasts I've seen that use Zoom, it's usually someone in Australia where we've got relatively good internet everywhere, and so say someone in the US and the internet's just as good, so they can afford to do it over Zoom. But for us, it's a bit tricky, and even with the phone connection, it's not guaranteed to be. We always have dropouts, or like delay, like delay in response. So you have to keep, starting and stopping, and it's hard. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's some challenges. So obviously, technology side of things,
Yep.
connectivity, and so just going to get a sense of behind the scenes. So is it the type of thing where you're always doing live recordings, or is podcasting always like a live thing, or would there be a situation where you're stitching it together and
Yeah,
piecing it together?
for us, because we want to hope to do it all live, but I think just a few of the technical issues with the connection, internet connection, phone connection. Also, yeah, sometimes the language barrier does come into it, because that's like he'll have to translate it because we're doing it all in English. They speak English pretty well, but he'll sometimes have to stop and translate it, and then so for us, it's stopping and starting. We hope to do more of a live format, because I think that'll be a good challenge for us. We'll be on the spot. Just depends. Like, you'll get some podcasts where they want it really clean and no stuff ups. So usually they'll record it, and then in post they'll just really fix it up. And others will be like, I think for ours or for Aussie Ambitions, it's just more, if there's stuff ups, then just leave them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Well, not too bad of the stuff up. Like,
yeah.
Not, yeah.
That's good. No, I'm glad you mentioned it. To be honest, I think it's just around a philosophy of like, what are you trying to achieve, and not getting too distracted. So perfection isn't always something you need to pursue. Like,
yeah, I'm a
space.
perfectionist at heart. Last few years I've tried to stop being that. So
interesting. So does that get you into trouble?
No, but like for myself, I guess, yeah, I'm too hard on myself. But I'm learning to stop doing that.
Well,
so yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, again, a lot of people can relate to that, and whether that, I can picture that might slow people down. I can imagine I've had to make some calls around. It's not good enough. We got to do it again, but then it delays. And so does that delay hurt you? I guess you live and learn, right?
It's sort of like with the podcast, you want it to be a good quality, but yeah, you don't want to go too overboard. So I'm still like, oh yeah, it's got to be right, but maybe I'm still thinking in the back of my head like not to overdo it. I think now I'm getting better.
That's good. I think there'll be creative decisions about how the interview went or those kind of things, and then there's more of the technical thing, like it's literally unlistenable, like you can't listen to it because of that hissing sound or that popping or whatever. So yeah, I think just on the creative side of things, do you have much interest in like in bringing in your own guests in the podcast? Like, where do you? Obviously, the Solomon Islands is one thing, but
like starting my own solo podcast. That's what I was thinking about it, and again, I was thinking like, oh, what topic am I going to talk about? And I was just thinking of all of my interests, and just nothing has popped up yet. So that's what I mean. I want to make it good. I just don't want to put up a podcast for the sake of it. So
yeah. Do you follow any Australian-based podcasts? I don't know if it's a big scene. We're kind of keeping track.
If I can name drop, yeah, I watch. I suppose it's someone that I've met before, and the podcast is called Meta Minds. So it's sort of like a well-being sort of help podcast, like mental health sort of. They'll interview like psychologists and all those sort of people. So I follow them as an example. Yeah, I don't really listen. Yeah, you'd be surprised. I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts. Just listen to snippets of like Joe Rogan's, or I usually listen to audiobooks most of the time. So
okay,
yeah.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things that there's so much content out there.
That's what I mean. There's a lot of content. Yeah.
How do you? I mean, obviously, yeah, you discover some things and you might jump onto it, or shorter format. Do you have a preference for shorter format or something a bit more in depth?
Well, specifically for our Pacific Sound podcast, we have to keep it to 15 minutes. Reason being, in the islands, they're very data conscious. So there's an app called MJams, and it's all done through like paying for what's the word? Phone credit.
Yeah.
So they don't have like would you say internet, a way of doing it that way. So it's all done through phone credit. So they're really data conscious. So we wouldn't be able to have an interview like for very long because it would chew up all their phone credit.
For sure.
So
I remember Australia had some. It's only recently where the internet's finally kind of coming, but even then, if you compare to the rest of the world, it's pretty scary, like how limiting it is still.
yeah,
Here.
very much in some areas. So I think is NBN still being rolled out, and
Yeah, like we could only do what we've done here in the last 8 to 10 months because
crazy.
we went from like only dial-up was not dial-up, the basic, ADSL, simple line, and upload speeds were like.
And I think even comparing
nothing.
to the rest of the world, our internet's still very behind.
Yeah, I think you'll get out there and you realize, wow, I've been to even to some countries you wouldn't expect, like Philippines. Been there
Yeah.
to work and things, and hotels are just lightning fast.
And the internet everywhere, and like in cafes or
the wiring's a bit scary.
Yeah.
That I've seen over there. You think how that, and you look outside and there's just telephone poles and wires.
Like, I don't want to walk near that in case something.
A fire could start at any second, but but you got super lightning fast. But here it's safe, but it's slow.
That's it. But yeah, just back on the length. I feel for us, like not too long is good. I don't know. Some people have shorter attention spans, so I feel like that's a good length, and that's sort of another reason why, like, if we did it completely live, we'd have to make sure we kept to the time limit. I mean, it's so hard to keep to a low time limit. So, in when we're editing, that's why like we try and condense it to 15 minutes if we can. We'll take out certain parts
Okay. So we might have some technically inclined people listening in, just to hear a bit about, what kind of tools are you using on a regular basis. So have you found yourself using a particular suite of software or apps, or is it like a desktop thing, or are you on your phone doing it? Like, what tools are you using?
So I just got my laptop basically and just some monitors. In terms of what I use, I was taught to use a program called Pro Tools. So that's like what they call industry standard. You'd see it in like all the big recording studios. I'd say that's more of like a complex program, and it's really good for like post-production, mixing for TV shows and movies. But it just depends on what you're doing. Like, I'd say another program called Studio One, which is by Presonus. That's one I'm starting to learn now. That's really good and easier to learn than Pro Tools if you want to, especially do podcasts, and you can even produce music in there as well. So it's sort of like a hybrid software. So
yeah, nice. With the video side of things, I know we looked at OBS and live streaming and lots of different, more than the video side, but have you played around with those at all?
Yeah, I did a bit of DJ live stream just during COVID, so I was using OBS to sort of run everything. Just had my webcam and another camera, so OBS, I'd say.
How was that? I mean, did you have to build an audience, or is live streaming the type of thing you just put it out there and then people stumble across it? I'm curious about that one.
I streamed it to Twitch, and I didn't have any intention. I just wanted to mix music and have it up there for people to watch. I don't think I got too many viewers. It was just something that I wanted to do. I wasn't thinking, if I'll get like 100 viewers. I just wanted to do it. So
okay. That's a bit of fun. I think that's where we want to make sure people are aware that all this technology stuff. There's so many different platforms and things you could do.
There's a lot that I don't know about, or I've just learnt from teaching myself, and I've found that the best way when I was doing it.
Well, that's something we're looking at, is live streaming versus recording stuff and then uploading it later. So I think there can be pros and cons, but from what I've heard, that live streaming, if you've got a following already and people are jumping in and tuning in and you can kind of engage with them, that's like gold, right? Because you get that interactivity. But from like an algorithm point of view, I think if you're on the stream, then you're good. But if it kind of goes into no man's land after, if it goes to, like, I think they keep it online for a period of time, but then it disappears. So if you want long lasting, I think you need to upload. I
think it depends how well known you are. I'm not too sure. Don't quote me. Like the big people on these platforms, I think you can upload after. But if you're just starting fresh, I don't think you have. Maybe you can. I'm not too sure, but
yeah. Well, these are just open questions. So again, might be a topic for the future. We can jump back, and we'll certainly be experimenting with that stuff with our formats, whether it's this podcast or maybe something different. I feel like sometimes when you get that live stream, it's got a different level of excitement where
You're on the spot.
what's going to happen next, and you got some guests that are a bit, freestyling, and so it's people like that. I mean, it's a new format, so it helps people sharpen their conversation skills.
Probably, something to try in the future. So
just with that, we do welcome engagement and any feedback for the listeners and the viewers on the channel. Just let us know what kind of formats you think would be fun to pursue. In the end, we like to keep busy and get people in for a bit of a chat and to find out the journeys. And it's a mix of, the areas of interest, but it's a little bit about how is it done here in Australia. So maybe with that, is there, do you have any experience traveling overseas, or like how Australia compares to other countries?
Yeah, I've been to Europe 3 times pre-COVID, of course. I found especially going through Europe and some countries, I like the way they do some things, and maybe I think they work for the country. I just don't know if they'd translate to Australia. Like, I think they're good for the culture. It just depends on the culture of the country. I don't think maybe it won't translate well in Australia, but I like some things that they're doing over there, especially with like the music scene. They're really supportive of the arts, creative industry. It's like here, it's I think maybe it's a bit different, like with Melbourne or Sydney, but especially Gold Coast. It's just starting to, get support, but only I feel like we're like 10 years behind Europe, especially with that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would just maybe on the sacrifice thread of conversation, like if you had opportunities that would come at you but you had to relocate or get into a new world, basically up and move, would you consider it?
It's a hard one, Scott. I really love the Gold Coast. Like, now that I think about it, I'm being biased, but it's like safest and best place to live, like Australia in general, really. We're pretty safe here. If we had to relocate, that'd be a big decision. I'll work that out if it comes. I'm not too sure yet.
No, it's just interesting to hear the mindset or the approach, because I mean, I guess you cross that bridge when you come to it, but it's sort of this globalist pool of talent, and I'm just not sure. Some industries, it's quite limiting. So if you're an actor, for example, you might tap out and do everything you can here, but realistically, to make it, supposedly you might need to go.
Depends, like what I was saying earlier, like depends what I'm doing. A lot, because of COVID, everything's moved online, so I could just stay here and do freelance stuff. Like if I was going down the podcast route, I'd be able to edit, mix and do all that from home. I wouldn't need to relocate, so it just depends. Everything's sort of like everyone's doing online stuff now, so you can work forever. You don't need to go to that location, but I suppose some things, but yeah.
Okay. Because of that online and kind of no borders and just everything you can work for people and people can work with you. It doesn't really matter where you are. Does that add more competition to the mix? Like, do you feel like maybe like a lower cost provider might undercut you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's talk about that.
I don't want to bash Fiverr, but that's an example of people. I think, to me, they're undervaluing and undercutting themselves, but they might have other work as well, and they're just doing Fiverr for fun, so I can't really say. But when you're charging like $5 to edit something, do you think you'll be getting a good product? I don't know. Or do you think if someone's going to charge you a few $100s, do you think you'll be getting a better product? So you just got to think of it like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good reminder. I think pay for what you get, and that's probably a general rule. Do you feel like your clients get it? Do you have to do a lot of educating to explain why they need to basically, is the term mastering the audio? I'm not sure, but it's about, they do the recording, but then there's something that needs to happen in post-production, right?
Just like, I'd just say like editing is the initial, mixing, and then mastering's like the final glue, so to speak. But some people will want all of that done, or they might have edited the thing already and then just want you to mix and master it and get it ready for online. Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, if people at home, they say, all right, hey Dylan, I've liked what you were saying. I've actually done some recording myself, but I'm having trouble getting it anywhere. I've just got a bunch of files.
Mm-hmm.
Do you work with someone like that, or do you have to be more involved with the actual recording itself to start with?
I could work with someone like that. I just got to really know their situation, like how they've recorded it and what program they've recorded it in, and like, because I'm only just starting, so I can't, get the best people yet.
Yeah.
So
I'm just thinking there might be some tips that we can offer out to people. So would you have any tips for people that are going to try to record themselves? Things like proximity of microphone, distortion, popping, that kind of stuff?
there's so many factors. I'd just say, first off, record in a relatively quiet space. Don't be recording your podcast outside unless that's what you want to go for. But try and, a quiet room, no distractions, not too much outside noise. When I've recorded my parts for my own podcast with my friend, I've done it at night typically because it's quieter. There's no birds flying around, not many cars in the background. So I'd start off, quiet space. You can get cheap equipment, relatively cheap, I'd say. Like, it's still a couple of $100, but compared to what it used to be, it's much better now for price. Just, you have to really research, and it depends on what you're going for. It's not really a one size fits all. Depends if you want to have a guest or you want to do it by yourself, or it comes down to your budget really and what you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then in terms of getting it out there, where are people sharing their podcast? Is there some clear way? Like, if it's a video, generally people are uploading to YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
What happens in the podcast world?
It just depends where you want to go up. You could go on all the platforms. For ourselves, we didn't want to go on all of them, in saying that we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and under Apple Podcasts they have like different other podcast websites that it goes to as well. And then we're on SoundCloud, so we upload to there, and as well as YouTube. But just wherever you think, it depends. You have to think about like your target audience. Where might they listen? You got to think about that as well. Like, always know your target audience. Do that. I'd recommend doing that when you're planning your podcast. Like, who are you aiming your podcast at? Is it going to be like young people or older people? So yeah.
Okay. Well, those are some practical tips that hopefully people can benefit from. Just since we've got you on here, and people will probably know that you're behind the scenes for future episodes, maybe just a bit about where you think we're headed, not us as a group, but yourself, in a year's time or a couple of years ahead. Where do you think you'll be?
I love that question. Have my own place, have my own setup. I'd say knowing what I want to do, hopefully have consistent work in the audio industry. I'd be happy with that, Scott, to be honest. So that's my main goal.
Sounds good. Well, one step at a time for sure. So if anybody wants to follow along, definitely follow our podcast and all the channels that we've got. So we've got, we'll probably be everywhere we can be. We'll make sure you got all the links to that. But for your stuff, you've got an Instagram that they can follow?
I'll give you the website, which links to everything. So it's www.dtbaudio.com. Go to there, and then I've got links to Facebook, Instagram. I've got a LinkedIn. And then what I've done, on one of the tabs, I've also got my podcast with my friend. So if you click in there, it's got about Pacific Sound, and then that will take you to the Pacific Sound website. So it's all linked to each other. So that's what I found is good, cross-linking everything. So I'd recommend to always do that if you have a website. Just link all your social media, have it all there. So on for example, your Facebook, you've got a link to your website, and then you know what I mean. So
nice one. Yeah, that's a good tip, actually, good reminder. So excellent. Well, appreciate you coming on, Dylan. I think we'll definitely keep the seat open. You're welcome back anytime, obviously.
It's been good chatting.
And to keep it interactive for everybody out there, we want to welcome any questions or input, because both Dylan and I can take this on board and work it into the future recordings. So
yeah, I'll be glad to take on any feedback, or I'm always learning. So yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Guys, thanks very much for tuning in. That's the Aussie Ambitions podcast, and we'll see you next time.